gentlemen, I'm going to cut this short and get right to the Minister's remarks. But as we know, one of the highlights of our November board meetings here in Ottawa every year is the opportunity to hear directly from our federal parties. And with a new federal cabinet just sworn in last week, we are pretty fortunate to have this next special guest here with us. Last Wednesday, Catherine McKenna, Member of Parliament for Ottawa Centre, was appointed Minister of Infrastructure and Communities. Minister McKenna will now oversee the $180 billion infrastructure fund, which proudly FCM helped shape. This plan, my friends, raises the bar on federal investments in new local infrastructure on everything from its scale to its scope to the cost-sharing methods. It recognizes that empowering local solutions improves the quality of life for the Canadians we serve. During the election, the Liberal Party of Canada responded directly to an FCM recommendation and committed to a permanent federal funding mechanism for public transit. Huge for us moving forward. Our partnership and FCM's exceptional strong working relationship with previous federal infrastructure ministers has been a part of that. So, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the Minister of Infrastructure and Communities, the Honourable Catherine McKenna.
Thank you. Well, it's great being here. Thank you very much, Bill. I'm late. I apologize. I was out at Meech Lake. We had a cabinet retreat. We're getting hard to work. We're getting right to work right away. I want to start by recognizing that we're on the traditional territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe peoples. Sadly, you're not in Ottawa Centre, so if you're wondering where to spend your money, if you just go a little bit that way, just down from Parliament, all the businesses, right? Tim knows that is where you should go invest, create jobs, you know, that thing for the folks of Ottawa Centre. Well, thank you very much to Bill, to Brock, to Dawn, I don't know if Ray is here. It's great to be back amongst friends, and I really mean that. I think we have worked with the FCM from the start. Actually, I remember the FCM, you did a really good job, not just in this campaign, but in 2015. And I think we responded to your priorities in 2015, and guess who else responded to your priorities? Canadians. Canadians understand how important municipalities are. Small towns, big cities, and everything in between. And the nice thing about this file, and I'm really pretty new in this file, is that this is about real things to real people. As much as I care greatly about talking about 2030 targets, and they are very important, and talking about carbon pricing, this is about how do we translate important things, tangible things that will really improve the lives of Canadians. Alors, c'est vraiment un grand plaisir, un grand honneur d'être ici, de parler de l'infrastructure qui vraiment change la vie des Canadiens. I think one of the things that I think is critically important is about the role that we all must play together. All of us. That's cities, that's provinces, that's the private sector, that's not-for-profits, in delivering infrastructure that improves the lives of Canadians all across this country. So this is my first major public address, since I have the really awesome, on all levels, responsibility of managing over $180 billion under the purview of the Ministry of Infrastructure and Communities. I want to recognize Kelly Gillis, who's my amazing deputy. You really don't get things done without a great public service. So thank you very much. And I know I'm following in big shoes, Amarjeet Sohi, but also my very good friend François-Philippe Champagne, but also a department that's been working very hard to get money out the door, to get project built, and most of all, to improve the lives of Canadians. As Canada's mayors, councillors, reeves, and wardens, and members of the FCM and staff, you represent the front lines of our great and pressing, and dare I say, never-ending, infrastructure needs and demands. Municipal leaders are the ones who see and hear and feel it first when the 100-year-old water main crumbles, the bridge fails, the storm sewers overflow, a major transformer blows, or the public transit system, well, fails. And with the changing climate, we have new challenges: flooding, droughts, wildfires, extreme heat that's impacting citizens, especially our most vulnerable. Infrastructure must respond to and be more resilient to climate change, but also be part of the solution. And people, individual Canadians, and the communities where they live are the very real beneficiaries of good infrastructure. And they're the very first to feel the impact of aging or inadequate infrastructure. It's true wherever you live and raise your families and work. This is every bit as much about rural broadband, safe drinking water in remote communities, and leveling the playing field on other baseline community infrastructure as it is about big city mega transport projects, which do tend to capture all the media attention. Infrastructure is all about making life better for people. L'infrastructure a pour but d'améliorer la vie des gens. Au cours des dernières années, nous avons été témoins d'événements météorologiques majeurs et nous verrons encore plus dans le futur avec un climat qui change. Nous avons vu les inondations à Calgary, à Toronto, dans l'Atlantique et ici le long de la rivière des Outaouais. Une vague de chaleur a fait près de 100 victimes à Montréal. Des feux de forêt sans précédent partout au Canada, une grave sécheresse au Manitoba et des tornades destructives ici même à Ottawa. Nous voici donc à l'aube de l'an 2020. Tous ici présents dans cette salle savent que l'impact des changements climatiques est bien réel et que cet impact grandira. I don't have to tell you that climate change is real. You live it every day, as do your citizens. Nous devrons donc mieux nous prémunir et nous adapter. So you see, it's true. Every week is in fact Infrastructure Week. Okay, you're supposed to laugh. Come on. You don't have to clap now. Now it's really ruined. As the FCM itself said about our 2019 Liberal budget, and I quote, "It marks a turning point for cities and communities across Canada. It doubles down on the idea of working directly with municipalities and their partners and stakeholders to build better lives for Canadians nationwide." And Bill, you're right. Permanent funding for public transit. Yeah, you can clap again. You can clap again for that one. Plus que jamais, la priorité de notre gouvernement libéral est d'investir dans l'économie, de soutenir les familles, de faire croître les collectivités et de créer des emplois qui renforcent la classe moyenne. Mais pour simplifier, ne serait-ce que pour ma propre compréhension de ce nouveau portefeuille, nous construisons des choses qui aident les gens, les communautés, l'économie et l'environnement. Ou, pour être plus précis, nous vous aidons à construire des choses. Parce que nous vivons dans une fédération et que le partenariat avec des leaders municipaux comme vous et les gouvernements provinciaux est essentiel à notre succès. And we're seeing successes. The Green Municipal Fund, for example, one that I know well from my previous portfolio, supports 1,141 environmental initiatives in communities across Canada. To date, these projects have helped reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 378,000 tons per year and reclaimed 77 hectares of previously contaminated lands. But what does that really mean? That means cleaner, healthier, greener communities that are better for people. And when I spoke to my friend Don Iveson this week, he pointed out that just 100 kilometers, sorry, I skipped that. I was wondering how we already got to 100 kilometers. Through our Investing in Canada Fund, we've rolled out new buses and light rail, and we built new community and recreation centers. So let me just be clear about my priorities. This is only a week on the job, so Kelly's getting very nervous. When it comes to infrastructure funding, so that we all understand one another. One, my first priority is getting things built quickly that matter to the lives of Canadians. That takes collaboration, cooperation, open communication, and that means that we can actually make a real difference. We're all partners in this. It is our job, everyone in this room, to ensure that all orders of government work for people. Otherwise, we'll see the continued erosion of the faith of Canadians in all of us. But there's another priority of equal importance: ensuring better jobs and economic outcomes for Canadians wherever they live. That comes through faster, more efficient transportation, like the Gordie Howe International Bridge underway in Windsor, Ontario. It comes through indispensable 21st century infrastructure, such as high-speed internet. I visited the farm of Colin McRae, just north of Winnipeg last year, where I saw and heard about the importance of broadband access to precision agriculture. Now, this is when I spoke to Don. And when I spoke to my friend Don Iveson this week, he pointed out that just 100 kilometers from Edmonton in Parkland County, getting high-speed internet access can be a real problem. So right now, the federal government is partnering with Telesat to build low Earth orbit satellite infrastructure, ensuring high-speed internet access to rural and remote parts of the country. So whether you're selling soapstone sculptures out of Arviat or canola from Kenora, Canadians need modern digital infrastructure to get their products to market, but we also need that so people can stay in their communities, wherever those communities are. 3, the third federal priority in infrastructure is both a challenge and an opportunity. We will be putting, and are putting, a climate lens on everything we do, and infrastructure has to be at the top of that list. En juillet 2016, j'étais avec Mark Carney, le gouverneur de la Banque d'Angleterre, il a dit qu'il sera nécessaire d'investir 7 trillions, oui, vous avez bien entendu, 7 trillions de dollars qui devront être investis globalement en infrastructure pour diminuer les émissions de gaz à effet de serre au cours des 15 à 20 prochaines années. To repeat that in English, 2016 I did an event in Toronto. It was on Bay Street. It was right after Brexit, actually. Everyone thought they were coming to hear about Brexit. And he said, that's a problem, but let me tell you what a bigger problem is: climate change. And he talked about the $7 trillion investment that was needed for the infrastructure that would help reduce emissions and also ensure resilient communities. Mark Carney est convaincu de la nécessité de créer de nouveaux modèles de financement et infrastructure, comme les obligations d'infrastructure, qui sont une opportunité de générer des revenus fixes. Peu importe le modèle de financement, son point central est qu'il est moins cher pour une économie de s'ajuster au changement climatique de manière préventive. It is much cheaper to build now for a changing climate than deal with the impacts later. You know what they say, best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. Well, today we're making infrastructure decisions that will contribute to and that will continue operating in a low-carbon future for decades. And those infrastructure choices aren't a federal infrastructure minister at this time in the country's history, is the opportunity to make positive changes that benefit people, that benefit the economic health of our communities, and also that benefit the environment. It truly is a win-win-win. Because when we invest in infrastructure, we build neighborhoods, lives, and ways of living. From roads to public swimming pools and hockey rinks, infrastructure keeps communities connected, helps grow businesses, and allows people to live healthier lives. The time to invest in Canada's infrastructure is now to bring Canadians good jobs, a cleaner environment, and thriving communities to come. So this is where I pull this out. So, little small here. Haven't got it right. So, I look forward to working with all of you to get to work, to building a better Canada for all Canadians all across this great country. Merci.
Thank you very much, Minister. I think
Thank
we're going
you.
to take
All
a seat
right.
for a few minutes, I know. Well, thank you very, very much, Minister McKenna, for the remarks and certainly the wonderful aspect of having the hard hat to really signify that we're going to get to work on this. So certainly, again, for the second time, I want to thank you on behalf of our FCM members, the people in this room, on your new role, and thank you again for your remarks. At FCM, we have already had the chance to work quite closely with you and your department in your previous role as environment minister. And I'm sure on a personal note, you'll recall, we've developed a bit of a good working relationship in making sure we got through the process of doing the LC3 announcements. And that was a great experience here in Ottawa. So leaving infrastructure and climate change and all of those things that are important to members aside for a second before I get to my question, I want you to know, Minister McKenna, one of FCM's priorities that we're extremely proud of is to break down barriers and encourage more women to run for office. Woo! Pam Mood normally does that. You know, including but not limited to a program that we have funded through the government at FCM referred to as Toward Parity. So it's an inspiration to me, and I'm sure every member in this room, to see you play such an important role and be a role model for women, for all orders of government. So thank you. And would all the elected women in here today stand up? All of the elected women, that includes you, Pam Mood, stand up. All of the elected women. Valerie, come on, all of you. Fantastic. Thank you.
Awesome. We got some more, don't worry. But
All right.
That's great. Congratulations to all of you. And also to the men that support women. We need men supporting women too.
Exactly. So, Minister, tomorrow, FCM is going to launch with a media release and certainly do a bang-up job in getting the word out on our comprehensive roadmap towards the first 100 days of government. It highlights practical next steps the federal government can in fact take to work with the local leaders that you've addressed here today to get more done for Canadians. These first 100 days are going to be, in our opinion, in our discussions, simply critical. Canadians are going to want to see progress, as you alluded to in your remarks actually, that they can feel in their everyday lives. So we're interested, Minister McKenna, in your thoughts on a couple of ways that we can achieve that together. And it's noteworthy that minority parliaments do bring fresh opportunities for elected officials to work closer together. So can you tell us, if you would, how your government intends to work with municipal leaders, as well as our partners, which is critical to us as well, and that's provinces, territories, non-governmental organizations, and the private sector, to achieve concrete results for the communities of all sizes in Canada?
Great. Well, thank you for the question. I mean, I guess if you laid out the 100 days, I don't have to do any work. I'll just follow what you put out there.
Yeah.
Joking.
Excellent.
Joking.
Okay. We're going to the reception now,
All
folks.
right, that's good. Well, I mean, it's interesting being Minister of Infrastructure because, in fact, you know, we have the infrastructure investment. We committed the money, the over $180 billion. And now, as you know, it's actually making sure that we can get projects built, but that requires collaboration. You know, if you're not in these places, I will also call everyone too. But I had a chance to talk to John Tory. I'm meeting with Carolyn Mulrooney tomorrow. We need to figure out how do we work together collaboratively. That's the only way this is going to work, that the way the programs are designed, it's 3 orders of government working together, and that's a priority. We have agreements with provinces, but now we actually need to move forward on concrete projects that meet these goals. So certainly accelerating that, making sure that we are actually working together. But there's also another opportunity, and that's working directly with municipalities. There's a number of ways we've done that. I mean, look, the gas tax is certainly something that I think was positively received in last budget when we doubled the gas tax. But there are many other initiatives. I talked about one, the Green Municipal Fund. We also put, I know this from my previous portfolio, $1 billion to help municipalities do retrofits so if you haven't taken advantage of that, that is a program. There's a Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund, another example of a fund where we work directly with you folks to make sure that we're building more resilient communities. The Smart Cities Challenge, another example of how we can work directly with cities. But of course, we need to be working with provinces too. And that's certainly my priority. I think the good news in this job, I think most people want to work with us on these initiatives because we have committed significant funding. The funding formula where it's 40%, the federal government is stepping up is, I think, for the large cities, a good formula. It's more if you're in rural and remote areas. So I think that there is a real opportunity. And look, you know what I've learned from knocking on doors? I knocked on even more doors than last time. We did 100,000 doors the first election, but we did even more this election. Is that Canadians don't care about orders of government. They don't even know what we're talking about. But they do know when you build the Flora footbridge. So that's a footbridge. If anyone has a chance, walk down the canal. It's a footbridge that connects 2 communities, Old Ottawa East and the Glebe. It's a footbridge that when I went there, I was there with the mayor when it opened, right when the beginning of school. You had kids who were now allowed to go on their own to go to school. You had commuters that were now deciding, actually, maybe it made sense to cycle because it was just a lot faster. The businesses on both sides were now connected. More people could get there, Lansdowne. And so this is what we need to do. So my commitment to you is, I get it. We need to get things built, and people like it when you build good things. We need to figure out these relationships, and then we also have opportunities to work directly with municipalities, which I think is also another good opportunity.
That's great. Thank you very much, Minister. And certainly to that point, then you can certainly respect and understand that it's so hard sometimes for municipal leaders to be in their municipalities and to say, well, yeah, you're right, the funding's there, but we just can't get it built right now. So there are things we need to do to move those issues forward. Last month, the office infrastructure would have seen this, I'm sure. FCM, in consultation with a few others, did release the 2019 Canadian Infrastructure Report. It found, Minister, that nearly 40% of roads and bridges are in urgent need of repair over the next decade. Municipalities, as we all know, everyone in this room cites it probably once a week minimum. We know that nearly 60% of Canada's infrastructure is owned by municipalities, yet we continue to only be able to collect a small fraction of every tax dollar. So if you could for us, just elaborate how your government intends to work to ensure local governments have the tools to renew the infrastructure Canadians rely on.
So this is a really important point, because it's not just about building new infrastructure. It's existing infrastructure, often decaying. And as you say, you guys, 60% of infrastructure is under your control, but you don't always have the tools, the funds to deal with it. And I mean, I think we do understand that. I mean, that was part of the rationale around the gas tax, the doubling of the gas tax to help support that. And when you look at the Canada Infrastructure Program, 2/3 of that money is committed to community infrastructure, public transit. So, I mean, I think that we do need to figure out how we support you guys, how we support the existing infrastructure, while also you are looking for new infrastructure as well. And I think that that's why there's a number of different programs we have, that's everything from the Municipal Asset Management Program to Municipalities for Climate Innovation programs and many other programs. But I think I'm happy to have more of a discussion. You could be sure all orders of government actually have infrastructure deficit challenges. Maintaining your infrastructure is extremely expensive. And then layered on that, what do we have? We have climate change, which has an impact, because infrastructure that was built 100 years ago or 50 years ago, even 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, wasn't designed with keeping in mind a changing climate. So I think this is something that we absolutely are committed to doing. Happy to continue the conversation with you, but I think we've shown good faith. And I do remember in 2015, we were the only, the Liberal Party was the only party that said that we were going to make historic investments in infrastructure, and we are delivering on that promise. The rollout, I hope it can be faster. I think that hopefully we understand that all orders of government need to be at the table, and we need to deliver for Canadians. That is what the most important thing is. And as I say, I've seen progress already with provinces, and so I think that certainly will be our priority. But keeping in mind, it's not just new infrastructure, it's also existing.
Super. Thank you very much, Minister. And finally, I don't think it comes as any surprise to anyone in this room, and actually you've already alluded to it several times, that we are, in fact, the leaders in this room are on the front lines of climate change. I'm sure every table, don't know who every table actually represents in terms of provinces, maybe they're mixed with other, but every table could tell us stories of how climate change has already affected their community. Certainly, as recent as in Halifax case, Hurricane Dorian, those storms are coming more frequently, no doubt. So we've already talked, and actually you've already talked on or touched on part of the question, that infrastructure has a huge role to play when it comes to climate change, making Canadian municipalities and communities more resilient, and that's of all sizes, and certainly more resilient and innovative in the fight against climate change. So as former Minister of Environment, there's really rather a unique perspective, I think, that you bring to your new portfolio. So can you tell us a little more about your priorities in this area?
Sure. I mean, it's kind of funny because people say to me, are you really sad that you won't be working on climate change? We're living in a changing climate. I mean, this file is like where the rubber literally hits the road. I bet you guys always use that joke. You must use that joke a lot. I'll get better at the jokes. Where the rubber literally hits the road with you folks. We can just go through different places. I talked about Montreal. Think about who's dying in Montreal when it's extremely hot. It's the most vulnerable, often living in very poor housing conditions. When temperatures, as I say, knock on a lot of doors, You go to rooming houses, if it's 30 degrees out, it's 40 degrees in those rooms. We need to be building with that in mind. We're building combined sewage storage tunnels. That doesn't sound very sexy. I'm really into all this infrastructure stuff, by the way. Why is that important? Because when we have flash flooding, we can't handle the water, so we're getting sewage going right into the Ottawa River. Is that what we want? No. So we need to be thinking about that. Certainly the infrastructure that we had from 100 years ago is not able to address that. When we have fires that are literally burning right beside communities, how are we going to address that? How are we going to keep people safe? And there's also the smoke that's impacting on people's lives. The biggest issue is flooding. By far, if I brought my friends from the insurance industry, they would tell us that the costs that we've seen, the costs have gone up. Right now, it used to be, going to get it wrong, but I think it's gone from, I'm now off my climate change stats, but I think it's gone from $400 million a year to around $2 billion. We're now paying, a particular incident can be over $2 billion in relation to climate change. But flooding is the biggest problem, and we're still building in places that flood. And that is impacting on people's lives. Go talk to the people here live on the Ottawa River, where it's supposed to be once in a 100-year floods happen every few years. So there they are again. Some of those folks also went through a tornado in the year in between. So this is impacting on people's lives. This is impacting on communities. This is impacting on people's mental health. This is impacting on the economy. So we're going to have to really think hard about that. That's on the resilience side. So I kind of put it in three buckets. So we need to build more resilient communities. We need to look at the Changing Climate Report. This was our scientists that put it out. You should read it. I've gone and when I went to different communities across the country, I'd have our scientists talk about what does the future look like in 20 years, 50 years, under different projections, because you guys are building literally for 20, 50, 100 years. But in the happier place is that we can have cleaner and healthier communities, that we can build better, that I've got affordable housing, SALIS housing here that's built to net zero standard. Do you know how much you pay a year per unit for your energy costs? $12. $12. So you're saving money, and also you're super energy efficient, and they also are built better. So that's a win-win. We can do that. We can build to net zero, and we should be building to net zero because it reduces our emissions, but it's also just better, and it saves folks money. When we talk about the opportunity with public transit, great opportunity. I know some of you are in smaller communities or more rural. We're actually getting to a place where electric buses are becoming a big possibility in many different communities. Cycling infrastructure. There's ways that we can build better, livable, more sustainable cities. And I think that that's where we need to get into the positive space of tackling climate change. The huge opportunity to build more sustainable communities, but also improve lives and improve health outcomes, and also more prosperous. And then the third thing is the innovation piece, and that's kind of the cool piece. So I was just talking to the head of the Cement Association, and he was just talking about how you can, when you look at different products like cement, you can have low-carbon cement, low-carbon steel, and Canadian companies that do that. Like, how awesome is that? Shouldn't we be supporting Canadian companies that are innovating in this space, so as we build, use different materials? So I think, climate is not everything when it comes to infrastructure, but you better be thinking about it. But infrastructure, of course, is a lot more. And I do want to be clear about that, because when we look at, for example, one of the commitments we made as a government was everyone should have access to high-speed internet. For sure they should, because then you can stay in your community. I was in the high Arctic, and I met this awesome woman who was making really amazing sealskin products. But she couldn't get on Etsy all the time to sell them, because she wanted to stay in her community. She didn't want to come down south to do this. So this gave an opportunity for her community. She was sourcing from local hunters. That was a great thing. And so this is what I'm most excited about this file, is that I really loved the last portfolio. It was hard. It wasn't easy every day. There's often some disagreements, I would say, in that portfolio. But this is where it's real. This is real, tangible things. And we can think creatively about how we build things, how we finance things, how we partner together, how we use things like natural infrastructure. And so this is what I'm really excited about. I literally am excited to wear a hard hat, to get to work, get projects built, and most of all, and this is what I really think is so critically important, is about all of us having to work together, the people that elected us, to actually deliver better outcomes. And that's what infrastructure is really all about. It's about things that improve lives. It's about healthier communities. It's about, better, it's about better economies, better opportunities. And so I think it's going to be great. So I'm looking forward to working with all of you, from hearing from you. If I didn't cover everything you wanted me to cover, it's been 1 week on the job. Don and I had a good conversation, so thanks, Don. But there's certainly a lot more work to do. But the good news is I actually have had a chance in my previous job to travel across the country to big communities and small, coast to coast to coast. So I have a bit of a sense of what you're looking for, but also, most of all, I have the sense that you want to be partners, that you want to get things done, and you don't want the roadblocks. You just want to get through them. And that is one thing. I'm a determined person, so we'll do great things together. Thank you.
Simply great message, Minister, and certainly the one that resonates with me is all orders of government and putting even partisanism aside. Canadians expect that of us as municipal leaders. So again, we sincerely appreciate you being here with us today. I can certainly, on behalf of FCM, say that I know this is the first of many, many other conversations to come. So ladies and gentlemen, how about one more round of applause for the Minister of Infrastructure and Communities, Catherine McKenna.